Welcome to the MSDW podcast. I'm Jason Gumpert, editor at msdynamicsworld.com. On this episode, we're talking Dynamics migrations to the cloud and what partners should be doing to make the most of the opportunity to work with clients on these projects. I'm joined on this episode by Chad Sogge and Jennifer Ranz of Enavate to learn the latest in their upgrade and migration thinking and the tools and services they are offering to other partners. This episode is sponsored by Enavate, and Jennifer and Chad, who are both former Microsoft product team leaders, talk with me about a few different updates. We discussed the launch of the Dynamics 365 Business Central assessment tool developed by Enavate and its role in the channel. We also discuss enterprise migrations to F&O and CE, as well as what the upgrade and migration landscape looks like overall today for both partners and for customers. Many of the challenges, risks, and opportunities of the past look very different today, Chad and Jennifer tell me, and we discuss how the technology and methodologies have improved. Okay, I'm here with Jennifer Ranz and Chad Sogge of Enavate. Hello to both of you.
Hello.
Hello.
Great to have you both with us. Why don't we start with just a bit of an introduction? Interested to really get into some of the topics of the day, but for our listeners who maybe don't know who you are or what is the latest in your work, maybe you could each tell us. Jennifer, do you want to go first?
Sure, I can. So I'm Jennifer Ranz, and I am our product pod leader here at Enavate, and I work on the Enavate Partner Services organization within the company, which means that we are focused on helping out our partners who help out their customers.
All right. And hey, Chad.
Hi, everybody. Chad Sogge. I'm an executive vice president of Enavate Partner Services. And as Jen says, our core mission is to be the partner for Microsoft Dynamics partners. So we do a lot of work with and on behalf of other partners in the community.
All right, excellent. Yeah, I wanted to start by learning a little more about, at a high level, what is new, what's the latest with your, upgrade factory, or your upgrade practices and work that you're doing.
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about what some of the work is that we do to support our partners. As I said, as Enavate Partner Services, our core mission is to do anything and to help any of the Dynamics partners as they move along their journey with the Microsoft product line. In particular, we're very good at supporting and helping with migrations from on-prem to cloud, so from Dynamics to Dynamics 365 across all of the different platforms that exist. We have clients that are moving to Business Central, we have clients that are moving to F&O, and we have clients moving to CE, along with some Power Platform work. And with those clients, it's really a mix of VARs, SIs, and ISVs. So there's a number of things that we do on behalf of other partners, whether that be white label services to help them fill some of the demand they have with their clients, or if that be ISVs that need assistance on some of the coding in order to move their product over to Business Central or over to F&O or into CE and really bring it to the market in greater volume and greater speed.
All right, excellent. And I know we're going to get into a little bit more specifics, but when it comes to some of the products that you're putting out, the IP that you have, I know that your assessment tool is fairly new. Can you tell me about that?
Sure, I'd love to tell you about our assessment tool. So over the last year, Enavate has really been focused on working on an assessment tool that allows us to really get a better understanding of our customers and their on-premise solution, and then looking at it and evaluating it and helping them make the decision or the roadmap on really how to move into that cloud experience. So like I said, we've been working on that for more than a year. And just a few months ago, we went through and did a launch where any customer that's running GP on-premise within the entire Dynamics community can really go out and run that assessment and get a better understanding of what they're doing with inside of the GP product and get that nice roadmap on how they can move to Business Central in the cloud.
And who is that assessment tool really designed for? Is it really for organizations that they've committed they're moving off of GP, or is it really something for organizations really who are just like investigating and trying to see what their options are, or is it kind of all of the above?
Yeah, that tool can be used for any customer. It doesn't have to be a customer who's necessarily moving into the cloud. They might just want to get a better understanding of what they're doing. Again, any customer can use that. And they're not tied to doing a migration. They're not tied to moving off of GP. It just gives them a better understanding of where they are, takes away some of that risk and adversity that they might have within their on-premise solution.
And I think what we've seen before too is as we talk to these clients, there's more and more clients that are talking to their partners about the cloud and really trying to get an idea of how do they budget, how do they plan, what will their particular journey look like. So we're past the stage of, gosh, should we at some point in time move to the cloud? Is it right for us? It's more about, okay, now what does my particular journey look like? And as Jen said, that's what the assessment tool helps provide more definition around, is we look at, or that tool looks at your instance of GP, all the ISVs you're using, and gives you a clearer roadmap. Now, what do we actually see clients doing once they have that vision and that roadmap? Is we see some of them opt and say, hey, schedule us. We're ready to go. Let's make this happen. Let's move to Dynamics 365. We see another group of clients that maybe have a little more complexity to their systems, might be on manufacturing, for example, or something around professional services that have unique needs. But they are ready to move that server out of the basement or move that server out of the server room on location. And so there, we end up with a dialogue of saying, why don't you move into Azure? Even take what you have today as part of your migration journey. And now instead of maybe a 6-month journey, maybe you're on an 18-month journey. But we'll move you up to Azure, and then we'll begin the rest of your move to Business Central so that you're ready with the cloud and you have that cloud infrastructure. So there's a number of things that it can uncover, and it helps you really make that very clear decision about your particular organization's needs and what it means for you to move off of the on-prem solution to the cloud.
Can you talk more about what the tool itself sort of means for the partner and their relationship with their clients?
So one thing that we've seen with the customers that have run the assessment tool so far is it's really given either us as the partner or the customer's partner the really good conversations of, hey, this is what we see. These are certain risks that you have out there. There's been times where even at the customer site, they don't realize what they're using for functionality within the GP product, but running that assessment tool not only identifies those, but then it allows the partner to really have that good conversation and say, hey, is this something that you're still using? Is this module something that you want to use if you're going to move to Business Central? And it really sparks a lot of those really good conversations. Things that we have found even with our customers is as we've run the assessment, we've seen data issues within their application where we've been able to go in and proactively fix those data issues. So if they are going to do the migration, we know that we can fix that information ahead of time. So it takes that risk away when it's time to actually do the migration. It's just giving them the ability to be proactive. The other thing that assessment tool can do is it really sets up that partner to be successful, to give a good quote on what it's going to take for that customer to move from GP to Business Central. When you know what's in the system and what the customer is using, you have a better understanding of how that mapping between the two different solutions works. And you can give a really good estimate and make that customer feel comfortable as to what there is and take away, again, a lot of that risk that they don't know or the uncertainty that's going to be coming with them moving to a different solution.
The other thing is when you look at the partner and you asked what does that assessment tool provide to the partner, and Jen highlighted a lot of the information, the visibility it provides. What we've uncovered or discovered is there are a number of partners out there who aren't ready for that conversation. They may not be as far along on their particular cloud offerings as a partner, but that's okay. That's exactly what a company like Enavate is there for with Enavate Partner Services. And so what the assessment does is it gives them visibility into their client's desire so that they can then turn to a migration factory like Enavate and have that conversation and say, listen, this is a longtime client of mine. I'm not quite ready for the cloud. I haven't spent as much time with it as maybe that particular client needs. How can I get help? Who can put their arm around me, per se, and help me with that? And that's what Enavate does as a migration factory. So we can do the technical migration as a white labeled service on behalf of that partner. We can even create education and training for that partner or for their client on what does Business Central do and what is this going to look like when you're done with it. And of course, we can create the roadmaps sitting with that partner and their client to help them say this is what a phase 1 might be and a phase 2 and a phase 3. So all of those are white labeled. That partner then has now an ability to not look away when the client says they want to move to cloud, not risk losing that client, but rather they can engage in that conversation with Enavate as a partner and say, okay, here's our plan. The assessment tool has told us this, and we're going to go forward with this kind of project. And it does help you speed up as a partner in moving from on-prem to cloud competency. And we all know there is a shortage of Business Central talent right now, not just in the US, but globally. But that's where migration factories, like the one that we run at Enavate, we have those skill sets. We have that talent and that experience to help you as a partner take and run that migration, create that Business Central dialogue, and then you decide if you want to continue to utilize our team as a white labeled service for that client ongoing, or if eventually you want to take over support and things of that. So that's part of what we also think in enables and partners is take away a bit of the, I guess, scary of my client wants to do this. I'm not ready, thus I may lose the client. That doesn't have to be that way. This is a way that we can all work together and make that community come forward.
Yeah, so I have a sort of a two-part question next. First is just in terms of who the assessment tool is accessible to. Is it really for firms that are partnering with you at Enavate, or is it broader? And then what about, I imagine there's cases where a partner says, we have, some larger number, 100, clients, or some maybe more than that. And we've got IP with them that's kind of going to be similar. We need some sort of repeatable way to run the assessment to meet our needs. Have you heard that request?
Yeah, so those are all really good questions. And with the assessment tool, there is one major assessment tool that we have that allows any customer within the GP community to run that assessment, and that is bcassessments.com. They can go to that location. And again, that's for any customer whatsoever. Once they run that assessment, they will get a link back to an on-prem, a cloud dashboard, and they can actually share that with their own partners. So they could just take that link, share it with their partner, and then they can have a conversation with their partner. Here at Enavate, we have our own in-house version of that same tool where we can compile all of our customers together and get information and do some analysis on that. And then as part of the migration factory within Microsoft, there's a couple other migration factory partners. And those partners have also had the ability to have their own environment set up for their customers. So those are kind of like the example, Jason, that you just said, where what if there is a partner that has a couple hundred customers or whatever, they have the ability to do that too. We've also had a couple other partners within the community reach out and say, is there something that we can do to either white glove approach this for our customers, or is there, an opportunity for us to stand up something like that where we'd be able to manage this from our customer base? And that is something that we are working on at Enavate to be able to offer that out to other partners into the channel, where they could go through and take the assessment tool that we wrote and have it available where they could share that specific assessment tool with their customers as well. So we've got a couple different flavors of the assessment tool out in the market, but any GP customer in the market can run that assessment tool, whether they go through their partner or they go to the generic assessment tool that we have, and then they share their specific link with their partner, and the partner can see their different results and then have that conversation with the customer.
I think if you look at it, Jason, when Jen and I joined Enavate, we had a few people come with us. And between the team here that is working on this tooling and on the migration tooling, we have anywhere from 10 to 25 plus years of experience at Microsoft. And so we have a deep passion around that GP community, around the SMB community. And we knew even then, but now as we're on the partner side helping other partners, we see that we can't all run individual programs if we're going to serve the on-premise clients the way that they need to be served as a community. And so our vision when we talk to Microsoft about the assessment tool and we start to work together is to say, we're going to build a tool and we're going to offer it for free. There's no charge to use this tool. So as Jen said, any GP client can go out and run this tool, and it will give you the data. It will give you the information about your particular environment and your method and roadmap to be migrated, because it's going to take all of us to move these thousands and thousands of on-premise clients. Now, of course, we're not a not-for-profit, but we expect as a migration factory, there's going to be some partners that need our assistance. And we even have another side of our house who does work directly with end clients. And so they'll need our assistance. But we really, really fundamentally believed that this is the thought leadership and this is the right way to go talk to that entire marketplace of on-prem clients and say, this is how we assess, this is the standard of migration, and this is your journey to the cloud if you so choose. And that's what we set out to do here. So the assessment tool is free of charge. It's free to any partner that wants to use it. It's free to any client that wants to use it. And it gives you that visibility so that we can carry forward as a community and really make a move to the cloud.
Yeah, I mean, the conversations around considering a future in the cloud for GP customers certainly are not going away. If anything, I think they're becoming more common from just my anecdotal observations. The thing I'm most interested, I guess the last question I would have that you mentioned, and that perhaps is the most interesting possibility for the future is some of that aggregated data that you mentioned. I think, Jennifer, you mentioned that related to sort of the results of some of your own clients' findings. And I'm just wondering, is there anything yet that you've learned there, either for how you work on upgrades or perhaps that you can advise customers on?
So one of the things that, and why we wanted to do the aggregation of the data too, and when I say aggregating data, we're really aggregating the metadata. So even if it's our customer or another customer, we're not seeing any PII information. We're looking at specific number of records or looking at specific features and pieces within the application. And what we're doing with that data is we're really trying to decide and determine, what do we work on next? So we are working in conjunction with Microsoft on the GP to BC migration tool. That tool is automatically installed into the Business Central solution. So when you launch BC, there is the GP to BC migration tool. And with Microsoft, we have been going in and making some updates to that actual migration tool. And so what we're doing with that aggregated data is we're really looking to say, okay, what are customers using? What is not in the migration tool? And what should we add based off of that? So it kind of helps us prioritize what types of features and functionality should really be within that migration tool. So I'll give you an example. One thing that we had noticed is that we've got a lot of customers who either are using checkbooks and inactivating them inside of GP. Well, with the migration tool is bringing over all the checkbooks. And so as we saw that type of information bubble up within the assessment tool, we're like, we should maybe give the customer the option to bring over inactive checkbooks. If they're not using that checkbook anymore, they probably don't want it to be in Business Central. So let's give them the option to choose to bring that over or not. So that's really what we're using that aggregated data for. We can also see like what industries they're using, what modules they're using, even what version of the GP product they're using, which is super important when we talk about migrating the customers. There's certain versions of the products that migrate easily. There's other versions that there has to be potentially 2 steps in the process. And again, as we find out that information, it allows us to have that really good conversation with the customer and say, okay, here's the roadmap. This is where we see you today. This is where you want to be, whether it's a year, 2 years from now. If the customer's trying to put a budget together, we can give them a general idea of what it would cost for them to migrate at that point in time. And like Chad said, we did bring a bunch of team members, our former employees from Microsoft, over to Enavate when we came over here 2 years ago. And that team was really, really dedicated to working on the migration tools, even as Microsoft team members. We started off with the very early versions of the migration tool, which at the first iteration was really just taking data, pushing it out of the on-premise solution, and then grabbing that data and pulling it in manually. And as you can see, the migration tool has really changed where we're just doing direct connections now to the SQL database and pulling that data out, which makes it faster and easier. And then having the data not be so stagnant because, as soon as you export that data out, then it's old data. But when we have that direct connection, we can keep that data up to date as often as we can. But then we also have the ability to say, okay, we see these certain tendencies, and we can do certain things within that migration tool, or even being able to, when we set up a Business Central tenant, have certain key pieces automatically be set up a certain way inside of BC that would match what what we have inside of GP.
All right, interesting. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit because we've been really focused on sort of the GP to cloud story here, but I know we wanted to also touch on the enterprise side of migrations, right? Chad, I know Enavate's been involved in the standard migration assessment program. What are you doing in that area today?
So Enavate Partner Services is listed and is one of the main standard migration assessment factories for both AX to F&O and for CRM to CE. So we have a number of different leads that come from Microsoft, and then we help do assessments to understand similar to what we talked about for GP, but these are generally more enterprise based. So the tooling is, needs a little more human interaction in order to look at it and really understand it. But what we do is we create that standard migration assessment that goes back through the partner, through Microsoft and through the partner, and then to their client. So we're heavily involved in that. There is a new program called Advanced Migration Assessments that's coming out in the next week or two. And we'll also be one of, I think, 3 factories that provide that same service if they don't fit into the standard migration assessment on enterprise into the AMA. So we have that capability coming out of our partner services team. Much like we talked about with the GP partners, if there is a partner who is low on capacity or maybe doesn't have the skill set to do that, we offer services that we could take that standard migration assessment and we could certainly assist the partner if they so choose. But that really is up to the partner to contact us and to be able to do that, because we do the rest of this as a white label service on behalf of Microsoft to assist the community.
Interesting to know about the advanced version, I guess, or the advanced approach, because I can certainly imagine that is needed for quite a few, CRM or AX customers looking to 365. Just the range must be all over the place.
It really is. And, as much as we can simplify, that helps. But there's a reason some of those enterprises have done what they've done, right? And the way that they've created the ISVs they've used, the customizations they've entered in. And so it does take a little more work, a little more planning in order to figure out what does that journey look like. And sometimes it comes down to, is it better to start over? But the beauty of the way that Microsoft has architectured the current solutions is the whole Dataverse, and that all of that data can be shared. So when the clients start to see the value of writing to Dataverse and then being able to create Power Platform applications or reports from Power BI, it really starts to light up the scenarios that had only been imagined before from the on-premise side. And so that's what we take a look at in those SMAs and even the AMAs and say, where's your best journey? What's the most likely thing? And here are some different cost approaches of how you could move from on-premise to cloud in an enterprise type of environment.
Maybe this is not related at all. Just it's something that I've been hearing about a little bit more recently is sort of what's happening in the fast track program with AX to F&O primarily. This would all be sort of before that in someone's planning, right?
Yeah. This would be some of the initial stages of that. And then it could, of course, feed into the fast track program because you now have that analysis. And so it gives you a better, more visible stream of how to make the move. So the programs tie nicely together.
So we touched on this a little bit already, I think, but I imagine that with any of these programs, especially when you're interacting with some of your partners, you're getting the question of sort of what's the real advantage of using some of these tools, some of these assessments when I'm actually planning my business, because it's sort of to some extent, I guess, a choice that partners have to make to commit to working with clients who need these kinds of services. Do you ever have to help sort of make the economic case to the partners themselves about why this is sort of an interesting opportunity for them?
Very much. I guess one of the things we run into a lot when talking to partners, VARs and SIs in particular, is just the amount of work that is out there right now. And so we get a lot of those types of partners that contact us and say, hey, we've got our hands full with net new. We've closed a number of deals. We're trying to implement a number of different clients. We know we have this base of on-premise clients. It's not that we have a vision of moving them to cloud. How do we make this happen? How do we get together and do that? And so we'll walk through a lot of that and start to plan out, what does the transition look like from BREP over to CSP? What does it look like in order for you to have the long-term commitment from them? And then if you need that assistance because you are short on capacity, for example, you have all the skills to handle it, but you have to make those business decisions of investing in more people, and or quicker wins so the clients are more satisfied because they want to move faster. That's where folks like Enavate Partner Services can certainly make a helping hand and bring that across even faster. So that's the dialogue we get into with partners. Is there's different types of partners. Some of them are ready to make this move, but they have to balance the net new sales versus this. Other partners just aren't ready for cloud. And so those are two very different conversations, as you can imagine. But the cost benefit analysis is there either way. And making that move from BREP to recurring revenue isn't a simple thing. So you do have to plan that out as a partner. You have to be prepared for how that looks versus the 12-month renewal at one point in time relative to monthly CSP. But the recurring revenue part of it and the value it brings to your organization, if that's what you're looking to build for investors. Investors value organizations with recurring revenue at a much greater percentage and variable than they do for those that get, service fees, time and material fees, for example. So those are some of the things that as business leaders and partner leaders, you need to really evaluate and say, okay, how do I make that cost trade-off? How do I make that investment?
I want to maybe wrap up with just some perspective on sort of what's next in the migration and the upgrade landscape, either technically or in terms of business cases or trends. And also, I'll just throw it open to either of you, whether it be for partners, for customers, even for ISVs, which we haven't talked too much about here. But what are you sort of looking to next, each of you? And Jennifer, maybe start with you on that one.
Sure. So as we looked at what we're doing with our current customers and kind of the services that we see coming in to Enavate or questions from other partners, one thing that we're digging into next is really looking at a Nav Assessment tool. So what can we do to help a Nav on-prem customer move into Business Central? We know that the data structure is very similar, but what is not similar is the code customizations that customers could do on-prem that will now need to be moved into extensions within the cloud environment. So really looking at how we can help customers how customers can really make those assessments done and figure out how they put that roadmap together to move to the cloud if that's what they're looking at doing within that solution. So that's what we're doing from an assessment side. Of course, from the migration side, we continue to build out new features and functionality to that GP migration tool on behalf of Microsoft. So with the different releases, I was just kind of doing some research earlier today. We've already added up to 10 different features over the last few monthly releases inside of Business Central version 20. So we're looking at continuing to do that based off of, again, what we see for indicators within the assessment tool, but then also the feedback that we are getting from the customer and the partner channel. So one thing we're excited about is the summit conference and being able to have those types of conversations as well.
What I would say is, Jen just talked about the number of features that have been put into the migration tool itself. We are well past the theory of migrations working. We've run a couple hundred of these assessments already. We've had multiple partners, multiple clients run assessments, and we've taken that assessment, turned it into a migration, and those clients are up and running on Dynamics 365. So this is now time for execution. The tools are ready, the programs are ready, the process is ready, and you have migration factories such as Enavate Partner Services that are ready to help if you're not ready as a partner. So there's no longer a need to delay. Anything that we delay at this point for GP clients risks losing them to other types of products. And as you've seen the journey of Business Central, you understand, hopefully, the value that Business Central brings. So anything you looked at 6 months ago is dated. It's time to look again, and it's time to take, and now is the time to make this move, to make these migrations happen, because your competitors are, and your clients are asking for that to happen. And so pick up the phone, give us a call at Enavate Partner Services. We're happy to help in any way that we can as a migration factory. We are very focused now on creating the volume to move these thousands of GP on-prem clients. You heard a little bit about the future of where we're going to look for other opportunities. And from an enterprise level, though that's not as volume driven, certainly there are capabilities and capacity that Enavate can help you with there. But the clients are speaking cloud. they're asking cloud. They want to make the move. So any delay now, we're starting to see it risk that client's long-term future with you as a partner or with us as a partner.
All right. Very interesting. Well, Chad, Jennifer, thank you both so much for your time today. Really interesting to hear where your team is at in terms of some of these areas.
Well, thank you for the time, Jason, and good luck to everybody out there in the channel.
Thanks, Jason. We appreciate you having us on this podcast.
This has been another episode of the MSDW podcast. To learn more about partner assessments from Enavate, visit enavate.com/partner assessment. That's enavate.com/partner-assessment. We'll put a link to that and other Enavate partner services in the show notes. And that's it for this episode. If you want to get in touch with me, you can reach me by email, jgumpert@msdynamicsworld.com. You can also follow all of our updates on LinkedIn and on Twitter. Until next time, this is MS Dynamics World, signing off.